if you are suddenly changing a page on a particular date, you will not have had that page rescraped and recategorized by the search engine to show up to maintain that positioning. So when you change that page on, let's say it's changing on Friday, you can't say, hey, Google, I'm changing my page at 10 a.m. on Friday. Please, rescan it and, make sure that I'm up to date.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. Do you know an e-commerce platform that was the hottest before the dot-com bubble? Do you know an e-commerce platform that has personalization built as part of its core before personalization was a thing? Do you know an e-commerce platform that had a market valuation of $11 billion but now has less than $100 million in revenue? Do you know an e-commerce platform that has a very tight relationship with Microsoft and is often installed with Microsoft Dynamics 365? Do you know an e-commerce platform that is really strong with multi-country workflows in regulated industries? If you guessed Intershop, then you are right. In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of Intershop's capabilities. We covered many grounds, including its unique position in the market with B2B companies and its history about how it was one of the hottest product once upon a time, but then ended up being just a moderate success among e-commerce platforms. Finally, we compared its capabilities with some of the modern headless platforms such as Commerce Tools, Fabric, and VTEX. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our e-commerce series for which we meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or solution related to e-commerce. And for today, we have a very interesting vendor, and they are one of the oldest one. It's called Intershop. So we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I am going to start with my intro. If you don't know me, I'm Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP e-commerce digital consulting firm. On that note, I am going to move to Robert for his intro.
Hey guys, it's Robert Brown from Robert Brown eCommerce Consultancy. I specialize in small to medium-sized B2C and D2C companies growing their e-commerce solutions.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Robert. And if you're in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys post your questions and comments. We typically try to cover them during the show. If you run out of time, we'll make sure that you receive your answers. On that note, Robert, I am going to start with the quick briefing. Then we can discuss the research that you have done or the experiences you have had with this solution. We are also going to compare this with some of the other ones that we have reviewed so far. Now, here, when we look at Intershop, I think this used to be one of the hottest e-commerce platform back in the days, I guess, when we talk about dot-com bubble, and we are going to be talking about their evolution overall. When we look at the founder's journey, and this, I guess, we have reviewed when we were discussing demandware in the case of Salesforce Commerce, and then the founder also founded new store, so his name keeps popping up in this podcast. So this is the first one that he founded. Obviously, this company is from Germany, and surprisingly enough, and one of the things that is most shocking for me is, all of the three companies that he founded, they still exist, all of them. and they are still selling, they are still doing business. And Intershop is the most fascinating one because obviously this is the oldest and the legacy technology, but companies still find value in this tech as of today. Now, when you compare this with where they are really present and where I have personally seen them, obviously this is going to be very enterprise grade technology as well. And in the enterprise e-commerce market, there are a lot of solutions out there. These guys started, I believe they were the first one, and the reason why they were so hot back in the days is because these guys were the ones who started with the whole concept of personalization. Before that, you didn't have personalization. I don't know, Robert, maybe you probably know. And I don't know when Oracle ATG started. My understanding is that they probably started after this and IBM Commerce. I don't know whether they were the first ones or these guys were the first ones. But, surprisingly enough, Oracle Commerce is probably not going to be there. But these guys are still around.
No, it's so the idea of personalization actually had a multi-point origin, and so Intercommerce was one of them, and then but they are European based, and then there's US based who also had that, and so the way European countries network and the tools that they use is very, very much a personal relationship. Much less so than here in the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah, completely agree. Obviously, Europe in general is a very traditional market. That's what I have heard from a lot of people who have done business in Europe. I have some familiarity, but I am not super intimate. But some of the specifics that people talk about is in the Europe, you are not going to find people who are going to be super pumped about using their credit cards, unlike US, where you have a lot more people who are slightly more risk-taking. That probably does not exist in the Europe market. The other things that you're going to notice in the Europe market, as you correctly pointed out, Robert, is going to be that these countries are obviously very small. They have very small market. So typically the products that are designed for the Europe market are going to have the language support, the localization, the taxation for a lot of countries because they have to sell sometimes in 5 countries just to make living for their own family, I guess. That's how small some of those countries are. So on your comment related to the US solution, do you know which solution was that in the US at that time?
So I don't remember which one was first. I know that Oracle had it. I know that there were some independent solutions that had it. A lot of people were actually developing. So years ago, some of the companies that I worked for, like EDS. And so we had our own web solution for EDS. Yep. And we were actually developing it back then before they were even bought by GM.
Very interesting. Yes, EDS. Now, nobody talks about EDS, I guess. But yeah, I mean, obviously.
Well, they're gone.
Yeah. So very interesting commentary there and the history lesson too. So some more interesting details about this solution. I don't know how long they have had this Microsoft relationship. And obviously, Microsoft is a very unique sort of company in the e-commerce game. And the reason for that is because, as we have analyzed a lot of different solutions, they were primarily designed for either Java, JavaScript. I mean, that's where commerce was in general. But obviously, when I look at the software development market, it's always 50-50, right? You have 50 Java, 50 .NET. That's how I used to think back in the days. And even today, obviously, you are going to have decent amount of split. In fact, if you look at any of the ERP companies, they are probably going to be on .NET, right? And that's why .NET is so prevalent. So it's always surprising, okay, which are the commerce solutions that are selling in the Microsoft space, because obviously they have to be there. So here, Intershop seems to have very tight alignment with Microsoft for some reason. And I don't know why that is. And I don't know if this is really built on .NET. I could not find those details. For example, when we reviewed Sitecore also had very tight alignment. But Intershop seems to have far tighter alignment than Sitecore with Microsoft. And they are literally selling together. And I don't know why that would be there, to be honest. I would think that the natural correlation would be with SAP. Because obviously SAP is a German company, this is a German company, so then that seems like a very easy marriage. But for some reason they have far tighter alignment with Microsoft.
Yeah, I don't know why they did. But everything that I've seen about Sitecore just aligns completely with the European business model. And again, I will say this, it is very much relationship based. The names that they have, you can very easily be misled, thinking, oh wow, they're so big.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so they've got BMW, but it's actually BMW Classics Group. So it's not BMW overall, it's just the
Yeah.
BMW Classics Groups, which deals with their older vehicles. It's basically like a support shop for their antique vehicles. They do have Rockwool, and a lot of people don't know who Rockwool is. So Rockwool is basically an installation company similar to the Pink Company here in the U.S., not naming names. So, you'll put that in the walls to do sound deadening and temperature insulation.
Yeah.
They do have HP, which is interesting. They have Merck vaccines, not all of Merck, but just Merck vaccines. They did have Mini, but Mini dumped them. So it's interesting, some of the stuff that they have. So, what I've found is in Europe, I lived there for a while. I lived in Germany, I lived in Switzerland. I have, some friends there, and some of my relationships last many, many decades, is they expect you to come back and visit them on a regular basis and press the flesh and have lunch with them. And, it's very much this personal kind of thing. Whereas in the US, it's like, where's my ROI?
Yeah.
What are you enhancing to deliver more value financially to my company? And so when I look at them, they are definitely on the smaller enterprise level. They are not in the, say, FTSE 100.
Yeah.
Right. But, they're in the smaller enterprise level, and, looking at who they have in their herd of companies, they are less known here in the U.S. It's been a while, so I'm not up to date on all the companies in Europe. I don't invest there. I don't trade there anymore. So, the size of these companies, they are not recognizable to me usually. But, the only one that I see here that's, easily recognizable in the U.S. is Rockwool and HP.
Right. So I am going to do a little walkthrough of the commentary that you just mentioned. So one of the point of clarification there, I think you meant Intershop. So you mentioned Sitecore, so I think you meant Intershop. Okay. So Intershop, now when you look at, and I completely agree that there could be a personal element to their sales cycle as well. But when I have spoken to the customers, and if I ask about the strength of the solution and why they had selected this solution, so there was some very specific comment, and I'll mention that, and then we'll do a walkthrough of these companies, whether they fit in that business model or not. Okay. So number one thing that these customers mentioned with Intershop is really good when you are going to have very global company where you require a lot of different approval flows. It is really designed for B2B business model, not really for B2C. When you are going to be selling in a lot of different regulated markets where you require many different approval flows from the product release perspective. For example, if you are selling in the medical device space, okay, then this solution is going to make sense just because of the kind of permission flow it has. It also does really well, from the taxation perspective in the European countries, and that's why the companies that are doing business in Europe, they are probably going to like this because of the taxation structure. Now we have a lot of different solutions that can probably do similar things as Intershop, but I mean, let's say if you talk about 5-10 years back, probably companies didn't have as many choices. So now, if you look at the business models and the companies that you mentioned, Robert, so one of the layers that I am seeing there is, yes, that is going to be more at the sub-enterprise level, but that sub-enterprise is going to have a little B2B layer. And when I say B2B, so even if you have, let's say you are selling it to contractors in the construction, in the HVAC space, okay? So that's where this solution is going to fit in. That's why BMW, and by the way, Commerce Tools is going to claim that BMW is my customer because they have already installed there, right? So I don't believe that they may have replaced Intershop. Intershop may be there in the B2B business unit, and B2C business unit Commerce Tools might be there, but now Commerce Tools is building the B2B function as well. So I don't know if they are going to replace Intershop or not. But for the most part, when I look at the Intershop business model and the data model, it's really aligned for those B2B franchise-centric business model in my mind. That's how I would think of Intershop. And I think some of the ones that you mentioned, I think they sort of line up with that as well.
Yeah, one of the other things that I found in here is, so there's a specific review, and we'll go over that later, but this is something that I want to get out there up front for people to think about. This is the review. It says, extremely heavy solution, uses custom-made Intershop Studio, which is Eclipse-based, unstable, and not a good tool in 2020 compared to other IDEs. So creating their own custom IDE, I find interesting.
And that is the red flag, I guess. I would definitely have that. And I remember that review as well. So that's probably going to be a limitation that you need to keep in mind. And I don't know how large their consulting community is. And typically when you are doing your own development, you probably require a lot of help. So obviously the community is not going to be as strong as some of the other solutions that are going to be slightly more open. Here you are really relying on either Intershop professional services team or one of their partners to be able to help you with the development.
And so that raises an interesting question. So identifying Eclipse, which is typically a Java IDE, but they're aligned with Microsoft.
Exactly.
Okay, what does that mean? I don't know, but it certainly raises some interesting questions.
And that's where my take is on the solution, to be honest. Okay, so most likely they are probably going to be Java based because they are using Eclipse as the way you pointed out. But then Microsoft is going to be .NET, so you are looking at two different rivals right there. So yeah, I just don't know, and we don't have enough background whether they are really Java or .NET, or maybe they have created some sort of porting to Eclipse, from the .NET perspective. I don't know. But something is going on that is not right, about this. Okay, so if you don't have any other commentary, let's review the slides. So here we have some history, and this is basically the company was headquartered in Jena within the state of somewhere in Germany. Customers include large corporations such as HP, as Robert pointed out, BMW, Wirth, and Deutsche Telekom, I guess. And from the region perspective, they are in Europe, that's number one, and US, as well as Asia. So here we have some more interesting commentary. Company value rose to $11 billion in 2000. Okay, right now their revenue is like what? 30 million euros. So obviously that is very small market share. They are simply serving, the customers that they have. They are acquiring some as well. But obviously, this was a massive valuation. But then, it's claiming that it fell to a penny stock, and I don't know if they ever bounced back to that level. They are saying at one point a profit warning by Intershop caused widespread losses for other tech companies. So I think they were the ones who actually announced. So it was, I guess, the way the commentary read, I think it was a miss from one of the founders, and then founders actually decided to leave this company. Obviously, they didn't have as much experience with the finance and marketing, so they probably did something here, and that's probably the reason this all happened. But obviously, from the technology perspective, they were super sharp. But this is a very interesting event. So that's why even SAP lost some market share because of their announcement. So that would have been fun, I guess. The company survived the crash, but was able to keep operating and to continue development of its products. And they are saying about 30 spin-offs were founded in the process. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if this is because of the founders left and they all founded some other companies. That could be true. I know at least a couple that were founded because of this. So that's a very interesting commentary as well. And this is the revenue from 2022. And this is for the first 6 months. So we have roughly 18.5 million euro for first 6 months. That's going to take us to roughly 37 million euro in revenue. Obviously, that's very small compared to where they were in 2000. But they are not growing. I think they are simply retaining their market share. They have had some growth recently because of their cloud patch. But overall, there's not much going on there with this company.
So part of it, I think, has to. So if we look at where they are, so Jena is kind of in the middle of nowhere for what people know of Germany. So it is in more of like the southwestern part of Germany. So it's closer to Kechna. It's like east of Dusseldorf and southwest of Berlin. It's so if anybody knows Germany, it's like it is west of Dresden and Leipzig and north east of Frankfurt. And so when you look here, it's kind of like, not big name cities or towns from an American perspective. When I lived there, I lived in a town called Braunschweig, which is near Hanover, and it's about 3 hours north. And, so, looking at this, like they're out of the way. And so if I think about them, if we start putting these data points together, the smaller enterprise level companies and a company that is an out of the way location in Germany, it seems like it's more like a family owned enterprise that is built on personal relationships that just kind of does what the board or the owners wanted to do, but it's not making an aggressive stance against the competition.
Okay, so we are going to read some more commentary, and then we are going to ask you if you still feel, about this point, because, one of the commentary that read about the Intershop's success in 2000, okay, the reason why they rose to $11 billion is because most of the other companies from Germany, they were trading or doing business inside Germany. This was the company that actually went out of their way to do a lot of trade in the US, and that's the reason why their valuation. And by the way, $11 billion, when we are talking about, that's in dollar, that's not in euro. So, this is not the Europe market. This was the company that actually did business in the US, and that's why they were so powerful and successful back then. But after that, I think they made some commentary, and because of that, something happened, I guess. But I'm not too sure about that comment. So I don't know. Let's review that commentary first, and then we'll come back to this comment as well.
Yeah.
So here, over the recent years, Intershop has established itself as one of the leading providers of B2B commerce solution. The greatest opportunities here are in B2B space due to the size of the target market and the number of. So this is some B2B commentary. Everybody talks about how big B2B market is, which is great. This is coming from 2021. Some more commentary here. A key component for achieving this goal is a strategic partnership with Microsoft. Okay, so this is where I think they started doing this somewhere in 2016, and I don't know what that event was. That seems to be lining up with Microsoft's cloud strategy. In 2018, I think Microsoft announced that they were going to go with your Microsoft Dynamics 365. 2016 is where they must have started thinking about it. So there are some data points that are lining up here. So I don't know where this is coming from, but this is very interesting. But Microsoft Azure Cloud, I guess 2016 was probably the year when you had this big shift in the cloud, especially when we talk about transactional applications, ERP, e-commerce. Before that, nobody was taking cloud seriously, but 2016, it was a massive movement. So here, some more data points here. This creates a seamless link between Intershop Commerce Platform and the Microsoft Azure Cloud, and integrated solutions such as ERP and software, Microsoft Dynamics 365. In addition, joint marketing and sales activities are carried out. The commerce solution has by now become an integrated part of the Microsoft Azure Cloud solution portfolio. Just one more data point for you, Robert, from the ERP perspective. Okay, and I don't know how much you know about the Microsoft Dynamics 365 solution. It does really, really well in the architectural engineering space, where you are going to have very heavy project management as well as a little sort of B2B. So they do really well, and that's why we are seeing a lot more logos, especially in the HVAC construction space. So not really the pure play construction, but when we talk about the architectural engineering and these HVAC sort of firms, they are going to be, and by the way, your AVs, they are going to be on Microsoft Dynamics a lot. So there will be some correlation between these two solutions, and that's why some of those logos are actually from that market, in that list, the one that you were pointing. So here, some more commentary here. The focus is on production and wholesale companies with the revenue. So they are talking about production and wholesale companies, but the wholesale could be all over the place as well. Here, with the revenues of at least 100 million euro is their target market with multiple sales channels, and that's where their sweet spot is. That the sales channels have to be a lot of them. As complex business models and organizational structures, the geographic focus of Intershop sales activities are the development e-commerce markets in the Europe, and those are the regions. Intershop markets DAC network of B2B commerce experts with a focus on production and wholesale. So they seem to be repeating that term, production and wholesale, which means manufacturing and distribution. Here they are saying, for example, the current e-commerce solutions from this one, Quadient, the beverage manufacturer. So, okay, this is a very interesting commentary. And Robert, I don't know if you are familiar with the solution called Mevo. That is another e-commerce platform. And the interesting part is that they are built on top of your Intershop platform. Can you believe it?
Interesting. Okay.
And they are decent, to be honest. Okay, they are more of the SMB player in my mind, where I have personally seen in the distribution. They are present in the industrial distribution space a lot, and they are built on top of Intershop. And I don't know if we have any other solutions here. Yeah, but rest of them are probably the customers. But Mevo is the e-commerce platform that is built on top of Intershop. It's fascinating.
That is.
Okay. Some more comments here. So this is the history. So here it's saying its stock price skyrocketed at one point. The firm had a stock market value of $11.1 billion, and that is March 10th, 2000. Intershop's revenue increased from 0.54 million euro in 1996 to nearly 123 million euro in 2000. That was the revenue jump. That's from nowhere to like $100 million in revenue. That's a big deal. 100 million euro, by the way, not just dollar. While its worldwide employment rose from 43 to over 1,000 employees. Again, big deal there. And I think they must be like commerce tools of those days. The way the companies are performing as of today, when you look at the commerce players of today, regarded as blue chip among the German new economy firms. So here we have some more commentary here, I guess. This is Business Week ran a story on Intershop titled Germany's Hot Star, which likened the Jena startup to HP in its early days. A crucial ingredient of Intershop's standing among analysts and investors was that, as opposed to many other German startups, it had early on focused on its presence in the US market. So this is the comment that I was talking about, Robert. That they actually went overseas market. I don't know whether you would call that as personal sell, but I think in my mind, they went out of their way to sell in some other market, and that's why they were valued so high. That's very different than selling in your neighborhood to people like you. Here, some more commentary here. So after the firm lost 70% of its stock market value on a single J early in 2001, some more comments here. It was alleged that the firm had withheld bad news from its investors. Okay, lawsuits and criminal prosecution ensued in the following years. All three founders resigned from Intershop's active management, and then all of them left. I think Schamback, he is the one who founded, and he was the CEO. He founded two more companies later on, and your Demandware was his company as well before selling to sales. So obviously he was very smart. No questions there.
Yeah, I think that in particular, that particular action is very endemic in the German culture at that period of time. So in the 90s and the early 2000s, there was a culture within German corporations to not provide the transparency that was expected of the investor community. We actually saw the same kind of thing happen in VW twice.
Interesting. So do you want to provide some more colors there in terms of
Sure. So VW back in the 90s actually encountered the largest currency swap loss in history. and tried to hide it. And when German regulators found out, because the exposure, the banking department and the German regulators found out what they had done, they realized, oh man, you're hiding the true risk that investors are having with the company.
I see.
And a lot of people got fired for that, and it actually caused a change in regulations in Germany. The same thing happened again at VW with their blue diesel technology and the reporting here in the US of the particulate matter from the emissions. And so they had actually adjusted their computer technology to cheat the emissions testing so their vehicles could be sold. And so, we have seen this in a couple of companies from Germany. So, looking at this and looking at what VW did and a couple of others, it was a normal practice to not be as transparent when we went through that pain here in the US, and they were just kind of dragged back into it.
Very interesting details there. Thank you so much, Robert, for that. So let's look at some of the demos. And, when I look at the product and the screens, obviously everybody is going to claim that they are all headless. Even Intershop is claiming that they are headless as well. Even their customers seem to be referring it as the headless platform. So here they are talking about page variant. So one of the differences that I have personally noticed in this, and I don't know if they are also able to do at the component level. So when you look at the newer headless platforms, one of the differences, and during those days, this might be the coolest technology, obviously, that you are able to swap out pages based on the audience and the persona. But now what companies can do is they can actually swap out the individual component on a page. In their case, they can probably do just the header and footer as well as the main content block. That's what I guess these guys can do. But now when you look at the true composable commerce, you can swap out whatever, inside your page or any pages. That's where the real power is of the composable commerce. But even I can almost guarantee that these guys are going to claim that, we are composable commerce. But the degree of composability matters too.
And, composable commerce is a fantastic tool.
Yeah.
It's essentially multivariant testing, right? And unfortunately, it's progressing faster than many organizations are capable of utilizing it correctly.
Yeah.
You'll end up getting some organizations that buy the sales pitch but don't implement the staff and the processes and the understanding, the training to effectively implement it to get the full bang for your buck on this.
Exactly. Could not agree more. And the more complex the platform is going to be, the more consulting help you are going to require to get the real value from it. So obviously use it only when you can afford to have it, and get really good consultants who really know what they are doing.
I'm going to stand on my soapbox for like 2 seconds here. What I have seen in the last 10 years is companies have a tendency of creating job recs for people that can instantly deliver for a position.
Yep.
That requires zero training.
Yep.
And so essentially what you're asking for an individual who has built an organization previously similar to yours to come into yours and do it again. And from a personal development standpoint, I would ask myself, I've done that. I'm ready to move for my next stage, right? My career is a vertical progression. Why do I want to step back and do it again? And so I think companies really need to embrace the concept of continually training your staff for staff progression, staff replacement, staff knowledge to keep your company in the forefront or close follow to your competition, so you're not getting into a bidding war for an individual that may not exist.
Yeah, great point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So if you don't have anything else, some more commentary on this functionality. So a couple of things that you're going to notice from the composable commerce perspective. You will be able to publish each of the components for a specific time box. Here, what you are doing is you are publishing that, you are publishing a page as opposed to publishing a component. So that's where the real differentiation is in my mind of some of the newer composable commerce platforms versus this. Obviously, this is not going to be as friendly. It is not going to be as open The other platforms are going to be very React based, where you have everything available to your developers. Here you are sticking to a very rigid IDE that Robert pointed out, and then you need to really know what you are doing inside that, and you might not even have as much document available whenever you are going to use any sort of community centric product. You are probably going to have a lot more document available. So pay attention to that. Some more commentary overall in terms of the functionality. So here I sort of like the way their structure is overall navigational structure and the way they are swapping out. But again, this must be hard during those days. It's no longer hard if you compare this with some of the other platforms that we have in the market as of today. Now, this is a very interesting data model, and we saw this data model even in the case of Demandware, just because the founder was same. So I think obviously you are going to get some ideas carried over when these founders move from company to other company. But here, the biggest power that you're going to see is going to be in terms of the number of channels that this platform can support and the number of variants that you're going to require when you are talking about catalogs, price lists. That's where the real complexity is in terms of the e-commerce platforms. So here we are talking about product one, product bundle, and then you have the retail sets, which is going to have very different pricing. It's going to have very different assortment of these SKUs, and then you have the product variation as well. So again, during those days, it must have been really hard, but now a lot of platforms can accommodate this level of complexity. And then you have the fallback pages as well, and those are going to be your backup pages. But again, when you look at the composable commerce experience, then you are looking at fallback option for each of the component, and there could be a million component on your page. I don't know why you would have that, but that's the kind of composability that we are talking about. Some more commentary here overall in terms of their indexes, and I don't know why they would do this, and I don't know, Robert, if you have to look into this or may have any sort of perspective why they have to build these indexes, and most likely it's probably going to be because of the legacy technology. It almost seems like they are building these indexes for each of the pages as well as the backup pages.
So the reason you would build these indexes is for search. When you have a large enough catalog, when we think about manufacturers and all the variations that go into it, you're going to index all of these to make sure that when somebody types it, because we know just as a course of business, the average user is not going to navigate through your navigational architecture. They may go one or two clicks, get a little frustrated because each organization is going to have a different standard for their architecture. So they're going to instantly go to the search. And they expect that their search term is going to return within the first couple of results what they're looking for. Google-esque, if you will. Well, the only time that you can do that in a timely manner is if you create an ungodly number of indexes. Because essentially this is a huge SQL query, right?
Right. So obviously that's going to be definition of the indexes, but I don't know if I have seen any platforms doing it explicitly. Here you are literally creating your indexes. So again, I think the newer platforms can probably create the indexes automatically,
Yep.
Based on your product description or whatever. And then if you need any sort of flexibility, and that we saw in the case of ECommerce as well. If you remember that you had a little flexibility in terms of how you want to sort of structure the search results. We had that in case of HCL Commerce, where you could sort of pin the product, but like manually building the indexes, not too sure.
What I've seen, and I am not the expert in databases, but what I have seen is there's two versions of this. If you're going with a relational database, which it seems like they are, you have to have these indexes. Faster solution will extrapolate that into a NoSQL, which is extremely fast, extremely big, but extremely fast. So I would suspect that the newer solutions, at least based here in the US, for their search technology, extrapolate the data out into a NoSQL database so they can get extremely fast results.
So I am going to provide some clarification there overall. Okay, so when you are looking at any sort of transactional applications, when you are looking at e-commerce, ERP-centric applications, they are probably going to be built on the relational.
Yep.
Typically, the NoSQL databases are going to be slightly superior for analytics. Okay, they are meant for the data warehouse when you are using them for the study, because there is going to be a little compromise there in terms of whether you want the guaranteed sort of relatability of the data sets that you have, or you care more for the analytics. So that's where the difference in perspective is. From the indexing perspective, I'm not too sure. And by the way, see right now, if you look at databases like Snowflake, they can do both the row and the column databases, and that's so the newer databases can support a lot of them together as part of one database. But again, I don't think that is going to be there in the older technology. Even in the relational databases, you had to build the indexes because the default indexes are going to be based on your primary key, but then you have to build the additional indexes. In general, you are going to get a lot of things out of the box because most of the people are probably going to have similar search needs. So that's why the companies are going to provide the default indexes. But then if you need to sort of make the customizations on top of that, you can do that. But again, I have not seen it provided as part of the UI where you have everything and you sort of are building the indexes. So that's where I would be confused. But great commentary. Thank you so much. Sorry, go ahead. You have a comment?
No. I think we're on the same page. It's, there was a period in time that most web applications were moving towards a NoSQL because it was a lot faster. And I think hardware caught up and search query design caught up to bridge that gap. And so where we are today, it's been a few years since I've actually built a web application that has the number of threads necessary to do something about that. So I think most of the modern databases are capable of handling that kind of volume, and they just make up for it in hardware.
Yeah, interesting commentary there. Thank you so much, Robert, for that. So now we have some very interesting features that I have personally never seen in any of the platform. So this is going to be cashback settings. Okay, obviously cashback is very popular when we think of Kohl's. That's where you are going to get cashback. But this is the functionality that, we have seen promos, discounts, but nobody has really called them out as cashback. And here, the way the functionality is going to work is you are going to get a cashback. You are going to have a date associated with that you can utilize that cash. Within that time frame, you are not able to do that. It's going to expire. So you require a little bit of workflow around that. And this platform seems to have that functionality built as part of the. I don't know, whether the industries that they are operating in, they have a lot of cashback. My suspicion is going to be probably fashion, apparel. That's where the cashback is going to be common. I don't know if contractors are going to be excited about cash. So this is very interesting.
I think it just has to do with the market. You have to know your market and what is going to motivate them more, right? Yeah. So, there is an entire philosophy around cashback, rebates, multi-pay. Yeah. And, it really depends on your customer base, which is going to motivate them more.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Thank you so much, Robert. So moving right along here, and this is overall the depiction of how much analytics that they have provided using those cashback redemption that is there at the account level as well. Again, extremely fascinating for me because I've personally never seen this functionality in any other platform. I would think, if I remember correctly, I think Fabric had the most or the deepest functionality overall from the API perspective. They probably have this. But other than that, I don't know if any other platforms are going to. So now some customer logos as well as some functionality. So here we are talking about master purchase agreements. And master purchase agreements are very common in the trade-centric industries. And these guys seem to have functionality for that. And again, my guess probably is going to be that when you are thinking of master purchase agreement, you are probably going to find this in the case of probably, I don't know, maybe Infor SXE, but that is more of the ERP platform, not necessarily the e-commerce platform, as well as you are probably going to find this in Epicor P21. So there is always a little thin line between what you keep inside your e-commerce versus ERP, but master purchase agreement is very interesting functionality. The approval processes are very, very, very common in this space when you are going to have so many different catalogs, different countries. product release process, obviously, the approval process is going to be extremely common. Now, custom purchasing limits per order or buyer, that's very interesting as well. OCI punch out. And this is something that we have seen in the case of Spryker. And this is going to be functionality when your customers want to integrate this in their punch out system. For example, let's say if you want to integrate this with your Ariba, Coupas of the world, that you might already have, so that you don't have to go to another platform. So this becomes very, very, very interesting, when you are going to have, let's say, 10,000 vendors. And if you have 10,000 portals, you are probably dead in keeping track of just the URLs of those vendors. So obviously, you want to make sure that this can be seamlessly integrated with your punch out system if you are going to have that. So that is the functionality that we have seen in most B2B platforms, so which is very interesting overall. And the logos, I think, Robert, you have done a wonderful job in walking through these logos. Any other commentary here? No?
Nope.
Okay. So some customer stories. So some commentary from the customer. And obviously, they have a lot of case studies there because they have been in the market for a very long time. So here they are talking about implemented a new product information management system. And they have the product management system as part of their bundle. But in their case, I guess they have implemented it as best of breed. And here the customer commentary is, it is headless. So they are feeling that this platform is headless. And I'm pretty sure the headless vendors are probably not going to agree with this. They are probably going to call it clunky, but that's okay. You can call yourself headless. Offers a back end and a front end. Adjustments can be easily made by customizing certain style elements such as header and footer. And that's what I would guess, that, the only thing you can customize is header and footer. So it's not really your composable experience. Sure, you have a little composability there, but that's nothing close to what today's composable platforms are going to do. Some more commentary. We have a lot of data from buyers and 3 million readers of magazines and a lot of information from logistics. There are plenty of opportunities to communicate with customers in a relevant and timely manner. The CRM and BI integration will help to further strengthen customer satisfaction and exploit up and cross-selling potentials through extensive segmentation and personalization. So obviously the personalization and segmentation that you are doing, it's basic because with the other platform you are going to get far more. But when I look at the volume, okay, 3 million readers, that's a lot. Okay, that's a massive lift. So obviously they are installed at a very large company, and this is a very interesting space because this is more of a book store, so it's not your traditional commerce.
So I need to go back and raise this little flag, if you'll allow me momentarily.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that they had you were talking about how they had the functionality where you could adjust the page, the unit, the start date, the end date, which is a great piece of functionality. But there's a piece of process behind there that is huge that we're really not talking about here, right? So when you think about marketing, right, because in the background of this particular page, it says page variation, personalization, promotion campaigns, A/B testing, versioning, right? So the whole point of having this information on the page really is for the inbound, right? It's the content marketing, that when people are actually in the intent of searching for a solution, that your content will rise up. Long tail keywords are going to rise up, and you're going to present yourself as one of the top solutions for this. If you are suddenly changing a page on a particular date, you will not have had that page rescraped and recategorized by the search engine to show up to maintain that positioning. So when you change that page on, let's say it's changing on Friday, you can't say, hey, Google, I'm changing my page at 10 a.m. on Friday. Please, rescan it and, make sure that I'm up to date. It's going to go by this old technology. And so there's going to be a period of time from an inbound perspective that you're going to lose that traffic because it's going to change the keywords. It's going to change the weighting. It potentially could change the inbound traffic that you get for that particular change. So the way that you compensate for that is your outbound, right? Your advertising. And, that's a process that's a process from the marketing standpoint, making sure that these are a coordinated activity that to make sure that it doesn't impact your sales. And a lot of people don't connect those two dots. They're like, oh yeah, we need to change this piece, and they're just going to go ahead and change it, and they don't understand where the downstream effect of that is going to lead them. Just putting it out there.
So that's a very interesting commentary, and I want to touch a little bit more there so that listeners are sort of comfortable with that. So the reason why I find it interesting is because a lot of people, when they think about personalization, they don't really think from Google's perspective. Okay, and Google perspective is equally critical as well, and that's that you are trying to make. So let's say if you have a page and you are changing it completely up, then that's it. Google is going to be done with you, because Google does not like, okay, today I am ranking you for, I don't know, maybe e-commerce platform, and tomorrow you are going to call yourself as WMS. I'm not going to like it, because I expect when you are an ERP company or e-commerce company, you be that, every single day. Okay. But
Yep.
Personalization is going to be important, Robert. Okay. The way personalization, and there is a subtle art there in terms of personalization. You are not supposed to be changing everything about the page. Okay. Typically, what you want to do is, let's say today is Christmas, and I want to make sure I have a little flavor of Christmas. So it's not that you are changing the whole product architecture there. You are simply aligning it with Christmas, and that's why you have date there, because you want to have Black Friday theme, you want to have Christmas theme, and that is going to be very common. But I completely agree that personalization, you need to think through about the process, how you are going to do the personalization. What may be good from the user's perspective may not be as great from Google's perspective.
Yeah, and so what they showed here is, from a composable commerce standpoint, I'm going to change a module.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to change the entire page. I'm not going to change the URL. I'm not going to change the H1 tags. I'm not going to change the major content. I'm just going to maybe change some variants, right? So let's say, I still have the hoodie that I wear in the fall, but instead of us having red, blue, green, and yellow, we change, those colors are no longer in season. And so we get rid of the yellow and we add chartreuse.
Yeah.
So we have green and chartreuse. Okay. Google's not going to freak out about that. But if you change the entire page, which is what that represented,
Yep.
that's a whole different ball of wax.
Just one quick clarification there, I guess that is going to be helpful here as well. So if we are thinking that this platform is probably going to be for B2B, that means these are probably going to be logged in. Now, when you talk about personalization, in the case of B2B versus B2C, that's a very different experience.
Yep.
In the case of B2C, the users are not going to be logged in. The pages are going to be open. But in the B2B, it's all logged in. It's all logged. It's not going to Google. So this is a very different ballgame. And I think these guys are targeting for B2B where users are logged in. So Google's positioning is probably not going to be as relevant in this particular.
Well, from a marketing standpoint, B2B still they're still the intention model of the B2B buyer, right?
Yep.
So they're unaware. They become aware that they have a problem. They need to go search for understanding their problem. Then they need to find a solution for the problem. Then they need to find the product for the solution. Who within the organization is going to be doing that? It's most likely the analyst, not the executives. The analyst is going to go do that searching, and then he's going to present that finding to the executive committee, and then they're going to reach out to the salesperson and start the RFI and all that other fun stuff. So I think there is a component to Google in B2B.
Yes, there is definitely is. So let's say the pages that are going to be open, that are going to be open for Google, obviously they are going to be indexed on Google. But once the customer actually comes in and they are searching for the products inside the platform, that's a very different experience. That is probably going to be inside the logged platform, because obviously in the case of B2B, you are not necessarily showing your prices, because pricing is going to be very different for every single distributor and dealers there.
Yeah, because from the B2B perspective, you're going to have the marketing, which is going to draw them in to create the lead, and then sales will take over, right? And that's fine, but we need to understand that changing things wholesale, if you don't already have that lead and you're trying to generate more in the upper funnel, that's kind of a problem.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a very interesting layer. I personally enjoyed it because, obviously when you think about personalization, you don't think from Google's perspective. So thank you so much for bringing that. Any other comments, Robert, on this one?
Nope.
Okay, very interesting. So that's it for today. Guys, if you joined for the first time, this was part of our eCommerce, for which we meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another vendor or the solution. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning.
Thank you all.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Robert Brown, head over to rgbecommerce.com. It's rgbecommerce.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Erica Salm-Ranch, who shares her insights on how AI can be used to improve customer engagement. Also, the interview with Noemi Kiss, who shares her insights into how the water industry works and how its sales cycle differs from other industries. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.